In 1970, Ford did something unthinkable. They built an engine that didn't just compete, it dominated. A small block V8 so refined, so aggressive, so ahead of its time. It made even the biggest, loudest muscle cars look outdated. It screamed, passed 7,000 RPM, tore through corners like a European racer, and was bulletproof under pressure. It wasn't just an engine, it was a revolution. And then, Ford killed it. No slow fade, no glory-filled retirement. Just silence. Gone. Why would a company shut down its most advanced piece of engineering? Why erase a machine that was rewriting the rules of performance? Some say it was emissions, others whisper about secret insurance deals. But there's a darker theory that the Boss 302 was simply too good. And that kind of brilliance, it's bad for business. Because here's the twist. The Boss wasn't just taking down rivals like the Z28 Camaro or the Plymouth Cuda. It was beating Ford's own heavy-hitting big blocks. The engines they wanted to sell. That kind of internal threat. It doesn't survive in boardrooms. So what happened behind closed doors? Was there sabotage? Was it fear? Or did Ford make a choice to bury its greatest creation before it embarrassed everything else in their lineup? Today we dig deep into hidden prototypes, backroom deals, and a machine so advanced it still gives modern engines nightmares. This is the story of the Boss 302, the engine that scared Ford. The late 1960s wasn't just horsepower madness, it was war. On one side, you had Chevy's Z28 Camaro, a snarling beast that could chew up tracks and spit out bragging rights. On the other, Dodge was throwing Hemis at everything with wheels. Plymouth had its Roadrunner flexing muscle in every corner. And then there was Ford, watching it all, knowing that if they showed up with just another big block, they'd already lost. They needed a weapon, not just an engine. And that's exactly what they built. Enter Larry Shinoda, part mad genius, part visionary designer. He didn't want chrome or curves, he wanted fear. He sculpted a Mustang so aggressive it looked like it was ready to punch a Camaro in the face. But that was just the shell, the soul. That came from Bill Barr. Barr didn't just build engines, he built problems for everyone else. He fused a lightweight Windsor block with Cleveland-style heads, combining agility with unholy airflow. The result? A 290-horsepower small block that screamed past 7,000 RPM and didn't flinch under pressure. It wasn't about brute force, it was about control, precision, a Mustang that could dance with Porsches and still drag race with the best of them. Every bolt in that engine bay had a mission. No fluff, no gimmicks, just performance. And when that thing lit up, it didn't roar. It howled. Like it knew it wasn't built to last, just built to win. Ford called it the Boss. Not because it sounded cool, but because it was the boss. A name Shinoda coined in tribute to his boss at the time, but fittingly, it ended up describing the machine itself. Meaner, smarter, built to lead. This was no ordinary Mustang. It was a calculated gamble, a street-legal assassin with race car DNA, forged in the fires of engineering obsession. It was a challenge not just to other brands, but to Ford's entire philosophy. And they were just getting started. When the Boss 302 hit the streets, it wasn't just another Mustang. It was a street-legal predator, built to hunt, built to humiliate. It didn't matter if you pulled up in a Chevelle, a Challenger, or even a big block. Mustang, the Boss, was different, lighter, sharper, smarter. And then it got unleashed on the track. 1970. The Trans Am series, the battleground where reputations were forged in steel and gasoline. This wasn't drag racing. This was war at 140 mph through hairpins, sweepers, and brutal endurance circuits. Cars didn't just need power, they needed balance, precision, grit. And that's where the Boss 302 came alive. With Parnelli Jones behind the wheel, the Boss was a blur of orange fury. It danced through corners, tore down straights, and outlasted everything that dared to follow. Ford's strategy wasn't just to compete, it was to dominate. And they did. 5 wins in 6 races. The 1970 Trans Am Championship was theirs. While other engines overheated, cracked, or choked under pressure, the Boss kept screaming. It could run flat out, lap after lap, until the headers glowed cherry red. Mechanics would send it out, knowing it might come back with cracked blocks. But they didn't care. Ford wanted victory more than durability. And back on the streets, people took notice. It wasn't just the power, it was the attitude. The Boss 302 didn't need chrome or flashy decals. It had presence, it had menace. It sounded like a banshee at full throttle and moved like a scalpel through traffic. It embarrassed cars with twice the displacement. Word spread fast. The Boss wasn't just winning, it was redefining what a muscle car could be. It proved you didn't need a giant V8 to be the king. You just needed the right engineering, the right philosophy, and a refusal to compromise. This was more than just racing glory. It was a message. The Boss 302 wasn't built to be popular. It was built to win, and that's exactly what it did. On the surface, the Boss 302 was a win. It dominated on the track. It earned street cred. It proved Ford could out-handle, out-rev, and out-engineer anyone. But inside Ford's boardrooms, the mood was different. The success of the Boss wasn't a celebration, it was a problem. Because while the Boss 302 was making headlines, it was also making enemies. Not across town at Chevrolet. Inside Ford, the big blocks, the 428 Cobra Jet, the 429 Super Cobra Jet, those were the golden geese. Huge engines, huge power, huge profits. They were loud, expensive, and easy to market. The Boss 302, cheaper, lighter, more efficient, but terrifyingly better. Dealers started pushing the Boss. Customers started asking, why pay more for a 429 when this 302's faster and corners like a race car? That question made executives nervous, very nervous. Suddenly, the engine Ford designed to destroy Camaro was now threatening its own lineup. And in corporate America, internal competition is a cancer. You don't let one department kill another. You cut it out before it spreads. Behind the scenes, the whispers started. Engineers talked about prototype Boss 302Xs, aluminum blocks, forged internals, superlight monsters that never made it past testing. Some say they were canned on purpose. Too fast, too dangerous, too disruptive. And then came the memo. Internal projections showing how the Boss could cannibalize big block sales. It was outperforming engines that cost more, guzzled more, and had fatter profit margins. Suddenly, this brilliant piece of engineering wasn't a breakthrough. It was a liability. Ford had a decision to make. Let the Boss continue and watch profits sink from their high-ticket big blocks. Or quietly kill their own masterpiece. We all know what they chose. The Boss wasn't just too good for the competition, it was too good for Ford's business model. That's what made it dangerous. It showed the world you didn't need big to go fast. You didn't need massive cubes to dominate. And when something threatens the system from the inside, you bury it. Just when the Boss 302 started earning its reputation, another storm was brewing. And this time it wasn't in the garages or boardrooms, it was in the offices of insurance companies. By the early 1970s, muscle cars had gotten so powerful, so fast, that insurers began to panic. Accidents were spiking, claims were climbing, young drivers were buying these beasts and pushing them past their limits. And insurance firms? They slammed the brakes, premiums tripled. Some companies flat out refused to cover high-performance cars. The entire muscle car market was suddenly painted as reckless, dangerous, uninsurable. Ford could have fought back. They could have defended the Boss 302 as a precision machine, not just a brute force missile. But instead, something strange happened. They backed away, quietly, almost too quietly. Then came the leaks. Internal documents suggesting Ford made a deal, a $20 million agreement to shift focus back to safer, more profitable big blocks. The Boss, collateral damage, the excuse to the public, safety, emissions, regulations, the usual script. But people close to the decision knew better. The Boss wasn't killed because it failed. It was killed because it succeeded. Too well, too visibly, and at the worst possible moment. And the irony, the very thing that made the Boss special. Its high-revving, nimble performance also made it a target. 10 insurance companies didn't care about nuance. To them, 7,000 RPM screamed risk. Speed was speed, so Ford had to choose. fight a multi-front battle against insurers, regulators, and their own sales model, or cut the line before the backlash. Got worse. The choice was made. No fanfare, no last hurrah, just a quiet end to what could have been the next evolution in American performance. But the boss didn't go down without making waves. People noticed, enthusiasts asked questions. Some started digging, and the deeper they went, the more they found clues about hidden engines, shelved prototypes, and a corporate machine that might have buried one of its greatest creations. The Boss 302 wasn't killed by a breakdown. It was executed, not because it was flawed, but because it was flawless. Just when the story of the Boss 302 was supposed to end, a new chapter began, whispered in garages, hinted at in collector forums, and buried deep in Ford's archives. Because the boss we knew, that was just the version they let us see. Beneath the surface, something wild was happening. Engineers who worked on the project started talking, quietly, carefully, about things that never made production. The so-called Boss 302X, a prototype with forged internals, aluminum blocks, and high-lift cams. It wasn't just a better boss, it was a monster, lighter, meaner, tuned to annihilate anything in its path. There were rumors of one-off builds being tested in secrecy. Twin turbos, exotic intakes, magnesium components. These weren't just upgrades, they were evolutions. The kind of projects that could have pushed the muscle car into a whole new era. But Ford shelved them, every single one. Why? Because unleashing them would have rewritten the game. And Ford, they weren't ready for that. Collectors and historians tell stories of rare factory blueprints vanishing, crates marked experimental quietly sold off to speed shops in the 80s. Some say one prototype was built for a secret Le Mans bid in '71, a twin-turbo Boss Mustang with no VIN and race-only parts. It never raced. It never saw daylight. In 2023, a mysterious eBay listing appeared, a Boss 302 prototype with 0 miles, no title, and handwritten notes in the engine bay. Within hours, it was gone. Delisted. Vanished like a ghost. No one's been able to trace it since. The deeper you dig, the more the story starts to unravel and then tighten like a noose. Because if even half of this is true, Ford didn't just retire the boss, they buried a revolution. On purpose. What would have happened if they let it out? Would Mustangs today be running 10-second quarters from the factory? Would modern muscle have gone turbocharged in the '70s? We'll never know. But the truth is out there, scattered in rumors, hidden parts, and the fire still burning in the hearts of enthusiasts who believe. The boss wasn't done, it was just hidden. For years, the Boss 302 lived in whispers, a ghost in the muscle. Car world. Then in 2012, Ford shocked everyone, the name was back. A modern Mustang Boss 302 rolled off the factory line, looking sharp, sounding aggressive, and promising to revive the legend. But the question was immediate. Was it really the same? The 2012 Boss was impressive, no doubt. A naturally aspirated 5.0 V8 pushing out 444 horsepower, a screaming redline near 7,500 RPM, track-focused suspension, and a Laguna Seca edition that stripped out the rear seats for extra rigidity. It was fast. It was balanced. It was everything the original stood for on paper. But to those who remembered the original, it wasn't quite the same animal. The 2012 Boss was polished, refined. It had airbags, drive modes, and creature comforts. The original Boss 302, that was raw fury, unfiltered aggression, a track weapon disguised as a street car. The new version was a tribute, a beautiful one, but a tribute nonetheless. Still, it mattered. It meant Ford hadn't forgotten. It meant the legend was too strong to suppress forever. It reignited interest, brought younger gearheads into the fold, and reminded the world that performance didn't always mean displacement. And it sparked something else, a second life for the original Boss. Prices of vintage models soared. Barn finds were restored. Tuners began pushing the platform, though even harder, recreating the prototypes that never got built. Supercharged builds, high-compression screamers, track-ready monsters that fulfilled what Ford had shut down decades earlier. People realized this wasn't just nostalgia. The Boss 302 wasn't a chapter. It was a movement. It represented a philosophy. Balance over bulk, precision over brute force, engineering over ego. And while the modern muscle scene exploded with 700-plus horsepower monsters and computer-assisted insanity, the spirit of the boss stood apart. It was never just about numbers. It was about connection, control, a machine that made you drive. Ford brought the name back, but the soul? That was never gone. It just needed the world to catch up. The Boss 302 wasn't just an engine. It was a statement, one that shook the foundations of what performance meant in Detroit. It out-revved the giants, out-handled the bullies, and outlived the boardroom logic that tried to bury it. It was a precision-built, high-revving middle, finger to convention, so why did Ford kill it? Not because it was too slow, not because it broke down, not because it failed in any way. The Boss 302 was destroyed for one reason. It worked too well. It made big blocks obsolete. It proved that smarter could beat louder, that engineering could crush brute force, and in doing so, it embarrassed the very business model that Detroit had built its empire on. Executives saw the threat, not from Chevy or Dodge, but from within. A lean, mean V8 that could outperform the company's most profitable monsters. That wasn't a hero. It was a liability. So they did what companies do when something disrupts the system too much. They buried it. But legends like the Boss 302 don't die. They linger in garages, in track day stories, in the minds of engineers and racers who know what it was really capable of. And now, as we look back, one truth becomes crystal clear. The Boss 302 was never just a product, it was a philosophy. Build smart, drive hard, respect precision, ignore the noise. It was too advanced for its time, too honest, too efficient, too good for a system that prioritized profits over progress. And even when it came back in 2012, it carried that DNA, a modern reminder of what happens when engineers lead, not marketers. So maybe the Boss didn't get the long run it deserved. Maybe it was silenced too soon, but the impact it left, that's eternal, because sometimes the loudest roar isn't the biggest engine, it's the smartest one. And for those who understand what the Boss 302 truly was, and not just a machine but a message, it remains one of the greatest stories American muscle ever told. If you loved uncovering this forgotten legend, hit that like button, drop a comment about your favorite Mustang, and don't forget to subscribe. There's more rare car truth coming your way, and trust me, you won't want to miss it.